Okay, welcome again. Today I'm going to be talking about some things you should know about OnTriggerEnter, OnTriggerStay, and OnTriggerExit. If you go into Google and you type in Unity API OnTriggerEnter, you'll find two different links going to the same Unity API. One of them goes to monobehavior and another one goes to collider. You should always look at the collider one. I mean, look at the example. Even though it's the same, the description is a lot longer and more detailed here in the collider one. So you should look at the collider one. And the same goes for OnTriggerStay and OnTriggerExit. For OnTriggerStay though, the monobehavior one is wrong about this part. It says OnTriggerStay is called once per frame. That's actually wrong. It's called almost all the frames. It's called once every physics step. It's called in the fixed frame, if possible. That's why it says almost all the frames. So do keep in mind, always look at the collider API rather than the monobehavior one when you Google them. Boom, now that we're in Unity, setting up OnTriggerEnter, stay, and exit is very, very easy. You just need at least two different 3D objects, obviously, and both of them needs to have a collider. This one has a sphere collider, this one has a box collider, and only one of them needs to have isTrigger enabled. In my case, the box collider has, and the sphere collider doesn't. And only one of them needs to have rigid body. In my case, the sphere one has a rigid body, and the box doesn't have one, but as long as one of them has a rigid body, then it'll work. Now I have isKinematic turned on because I don't want actual gravity or physics to simulate here. We're passing through objects here. That's what trigger is for anyway, so isKinematic is turned on. And for the wireframe, I'm using a wireframe shader that I downloaded from the Unity asset store for free. It's obviously not needed for triggers to work, but I'm just showing you that things can pass through each other easily with this shader. For the script, I'm using something, again, extremely easy. It's basically just calling OnTriggerEnter, OnTriggerStay, OnTriggerExit, and printing a message if I allow it to print a message. That's all. And I attached it to the cube, even though you can also write a script using the same functions for the sphere. Both will be called. Now let's do some tests for OnTriggerEnter. As you can see, I can move along the objects and have the triggers enter and exit here. I only have enter and exit turned on, by the way. I'm not calling stay, because stay gets called for every fixed frame, so it fills up the console command really fast. Let's clear the console. So you saw earlier that I can move the position of the objects to call OnTriggerEnter and OnTriggerExit, and it would also work if I simply scale it in real time, dynamically in the game. That will also be called. It'll also work when you rotate and things, all of that work. But let's do some more detailed testing. Say, for example, the cube is actually inside of the sphere before the game even started, and I'll just simply disable the cube beforehand and run the game. There's no camera, that's why this happens, but it's okay. We're doing this in the scene view right now, so we don't even need a camera. And as you can see, there's nothing in the console, but if I enable the cube while it's already inside of the sphere, you'll see that the trigger, this OnTriggerEnter, is still called. And you'll see that OnTriggerStay is also called, but I just disabled it. Now let's clear the console again. Now, supposedly, if I disable the cube should call OnTriggerExit, but that actually doesn't happen, and you'll see right now that I disabled it, but nothing's in the console, it doesn't get called. But if I just keep enable and disable, you'll see that OnTriggerEnter gets called. Only the enter, but not the exit. So from here, you'll know that OnTriggerExit only gets called when the object literally, physically leaves the other object, as you can see here. Now OnTriggerExit is called. So only when the objects physically leave each other's space, that's when OnTriggerExit gets called. And now that you know this, this might become a problem when you're doing some coding. Suppose your character dies in the middle of a healing field or something, then you'll lose the reference to that or whatever. So I think this is a interesting thing that you should know about OnTriggerEnter and OnTriggerExit. And this also happens when the character gets destroyed, the object gets destroyed in the middle of this thing. So as you can see here, OnTriggerEnter gets called, and I literally just delete the cube right now. OnTriggerExit doesn't get called. So if you are coding something that this is perhaps a field of healing field, and you're keeping a list of soldiers that are inside this field with a list or an array or something, and then all of a sudden one of the soldiers dies, and then you actually destroy the game object, and then in the field you will lose the reference to that soldier, and it'll maybe crash your game or develop some other weird bugs. So you should keep in mind that this is how OnTriggerEnter and exit work. OnExit only happens when the objects physically leave each other's space. And that's pretty much it for this video. After 2 years since my last video, apparently. Well, goodbye.